The colony was quiet that evening. A red sun was sinking behind the rocky hills, painting the sky in fire and shadow. Human settlers were finishing their work, repairing machines and sealing doors for the cold night. Children laughed near the water tanks, their voices echoing against metal walls. For a moment, it felt like peace. But peace never lasted long in this place. At the gates of the colony, a strange figure appeared. She was tall, her skin pale silver, her hair like thin threads of glass. She wore a torn cloak, and two small children clung to her legs. Dust covered their faces, and fear lived in their eyes. The guards raised their rifles. "Stop there," one of them shouted. But the woman lifted her hands, showing she carried no weapon. Her voice trembled, but it was clear. "My children are well behaved," she said. "I can be a good wife to you, human, please. Take us in." The guards froze. Behind her, the children stared at the soldiers, silent and afraid. A crowd began. Together humans whispered to each other, confused, shocked. Did she say, "Wife"? She is one of them. Why would she beg like this? This must be some trick. The woman fell to her knees on the hard ground. The children copied her, lowering their heads. Dust rose around them like smoke. A man stepped forward from the crowd. He wore the dark uniform of a human officer, his chest marked with old medals. His name was Captain Rourke, known for his stern face and steady voice. He looked down at the alien widow, his jaw tightening. "Explain yourself," he said. "Why do you ask this of me?" The woman lifted her face. Her silver eyes shimmered. With tears, "My husband is dead," she whispered. "Killed in the war. The same war that brought you here. My people have abandoned us. They say we are weak. Without a human protector, my children will not live. I beg you, let us stay. I will serve you. I will care for your home. My children will obey. Just don't send us away." The crowd stirred. Some looked at her with pity, others with anger. "Captain, we cannot trust her. She is desperate. Desperation makes people dangerous. She speaks like she knows humans are different." Rourke remained silent. He studied the woman's face, then the children's thin arms, their tired eyes. They were starving. They were broken by fear. But why ask to be his wife? Why offer herself in this way? The air grew heavier. Everyone waited for his answer. Before he could speak, the colony sirens screamed. A sharp alarm cut through the air, turning peace into panic. Red lights flashed across the walls. A voice came through the loudspeakers. "Warning! Unknown ships detected. Enemy approach. Prepare defenses." The crowd scattered, running to shelters and weapons posts. The guards rushed to their stations. The children clung tighter to their mother, their small hands shaking. The woman looked up at Captain Rourke with terror in her eyes. "They are here," she whispered. "The killers of my husband. If you do not help us now, they will take my children too." Rourke turned his head toward the horizon. Beyond the hills, black dots rose into the sky, enemy warships, their engines glowing with crimson fire. He felt the ground tremble beneath his boots. The widow's plea still hung in the air. "My children are well behaved. I can be a good wife to you, human." It was not just a plea for protection. It was a cry for survival. Rourke clenched his fists. His soldiers waited for his command. The colony looked to him for leadership. And now, this strange widow and her children looked to him as well. Was she truly desperate, or was it all a trap? The sound of engines grew louder. Shadows of enemy fighters streaked across the burning sky. The widow whispered again, her voice breaking, "Choose now, human, before it is too late." The captain's heart pounded as the first enemy ship descended toward the colony gates. And still, he had not answered her plea. The first enemy ship cut through the clouds like a knife. Its black metal hull glowed with red lines like veins filled with fire. The sound of its engines shook the colony walls. Dust fell from the roofs. Children screamed. Human settlers ran for cover, dragging supplies into shelters. Soldiers rushed to their posts, loading rifles and powering defense turrets. The colony, which had been quiet only moments before, was now alive with fear and chaos. Captain Rourke stood at the gates, his eyes fixed on the sky, the alien widow and her children. Huddled at his side, their silver eyes wide with terror. "They are the same ones," she whispered. "The same who killed my husband. The same who destroy everything they touch. They will not stop." Rourke didn't answer. His face was stone, but inside, his mind was racing. Why come here? I know. Do they know about her? The black ship hovered above the colony, casting a huge shadow. Then more appeared. 2, 5, 10. A whole squadron. Their formation was tight, their weapons armed. The widow's children began to cry softly. She held them close, whispering words in her own tongue. A voice boomed from the enemy ship, carried by hidden speakers. "Humans, you shelter traitors. Hand them over, or we burn your colony to ash." The crowd gasped. Soldiers looked at one another in confusion. Rourke turned sharply to the widow. "They want you," he said flatly. Her lips trembled. She nodded slowly. "Yes, they call me traitor because I chose to beg from humans instead of kneel to them. They will not forgive that. They will kill my children for what I have done." Rourke's jaw clenched. The widow's plea from earlier echoed in his mind. "My children are well behaved. I can be a good wife to you, human." He realized now it was not only about survival, it was about defiance. She believed only humans could resist the cruelty of her enemies. But if he sheltered her, the colony would face destruction. The soldiers turned to him, waiting. Their voices were low, filled with fear. "Captain, what do we do? We can't fight that fleet, sir. They'll kill us all for one alien woman." The widow dropped to her knees again, pulling her children close. "Please, Captain, do not give us to them. If you hand us over, you will save your people for a day, maybe 2. But they will return. They always return. They will never stop until every human world burns." Rourke stared at her. There was no lie in her eyes. Only pain. Above, the enemy ships began to lower, their weapons glowing brighter. The voice boomed. Again, "Last chance, humans. Surrender the widow and her spawn. 10 breaths, or we fire." The colony trembled. Mothers hugged their children. Soldiers raised rifles they knew were too weak. The air was heavy with fear. Rourke finally spoke, his voice low but steady. "If what you say is true, then this fight was always coming." The widow's eyes widened. "You will protect us," she whispered. Rourke's answer was sharp, meant for everyone to hear. "Humans don't hand over the helpless. Not today, not ever." The colony roared in fear and in hope at the same time. Soldiers gripped their weapons tighter. Settlers rushed to help man the defenses. The widow closed her eyes, tears falling onto the dusty ground. Then the enemy ships moved into attack position. Red lights locked onto the colony walls. The first charge began to build. Rourke lifted his rifle and shouted, "Then let them come." The sky exploded with fire as the enemy opened their first barrage. The night sky burned red. Enemy fire slammed against the colony shields, shaking the ground with every hit. Sparks rained down from the defense towers. People screamed and ran for cover as explosions echoed through the settlement. Captain Rourke barked orders, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Shields to full power. Move the civilians underground. Gunners, fire on my mark. Human soldiers scrambled, manning heavy turrets and loading rail cannons. Their faces were pale but determined. Against the enemy fleet, their weapons looked small, almost useless. But humans had always fought with more than weapons. They fought with grit. Near the gates, the alien widow held her children close. The little ones pressed their faces into her torn cloak, trying to hide from the fire in the sky. Then it happened. A sharp scream split the night. One of the widow's children, her daughter, had slipped away from her grip. The blast of an explosion had thrown the girl back, and now she stood alone in the open yard, frozen in fear. "Lyra," the widow cried, her voice breaking. The little girl stared up at the glowing red light of an enemy scout drone that had spotted her. Its mechanical eye locked on her tiny figure. The drone tilted, preparing to fire. The widow tried to run, but the force of panicked colonists pushed her back. She shouted again, but no one could hear her over the alarms and gunfire. Captain Rourke saw it. His heart hammered. The drone's weapon began to glow. The child's eyes widened in terror. Without thinking, Rourke sprinted across the yard. He threw himself forward, tackling the girl just as the drone fired. A beam of searing red light cut through the ground where she had stood. The blast scorched the dirt, missing them by inches. Rourke rolled, shielding the girl with his own body. The drone whirred, turning to aim again. "Captain," shouted one of his soldiers. A rail cannon roared. A bolt of steel ripped through the night sky and smashed into the drone. It burst into a cloud of fire and broken metal. The wreckage rained down, scattering sparks across the ground. The little girl clung to Rourke's chest, sobbing. He stood, carrying her back to her mother. The widow's eyes overflowed with tears as she reached for her daughter. "You saved her," she whispered. Rourke placed the girl in her arms. "Stay close. Don't let them out of your sight." The widow nodded. Trembling, her children buried their faces against her. For the first time, she saw something different in the captain's eyes. Not just duty, humanity. But the danger was not over. Above the colony, enemy ships adjusted their attack. Troop carriers began to descend, their claws digging into the earth. As they landed, from inside, enemy soldiers poured out tall, armored, and merciless. Their weapons glowed with crimson fire. The human soldiers tightened their formation at the gates. Fear pressed heavy in their throats, but not one of them stepped back. The widow's voice broke the silence as she clutched her children tighter. "They will not stop until they take us. They hate us because we came to you. They will kill anyone who protects us." Rourke stared at the advancing enemy. His grip tightened on his rifle. "Then they'll have to go through us," he said. The first enemy warrior let out a roar, shaking the ground as they charged toward the gates, and the humans raised their weapons. Ready to make their stand, the first enemy warrior charged through the dust, its massive frame covered in jagged black armor. It carried a plasma blade that hissed like fire. Behind it, more soldiers followed. A tide of red eyes and heavy footsteps shaking the ground. The colony gates groaned as human defenders braced for impact. The settlers had no walls of stone, no massive fleets, no advanced weapons. What they had was grit, and grit was often enough. "Hold the line," Captain Rourke shouted. The human soldiers knelt behind makeshift barricades. Steel beams and broken machines turned into cover. Their rifles glowed with blue energy, humming in their hands. Every man and woman knew what was at stake. The widow stood near the shelter, clutching her children. Her silver eyes followed Rourke, a mix of fear and strange hope burning inside her. The first clash came like thunder. Enemy soldiers stormed the barricades, their plasma weapons slicing through metal. Humans fired back, their rifles spitting bolts of light. Sparks and screams filled the air. One enemy leaped high, landing on top of a barricade. Its blade came down, but a human soldier rolled away and shot upward, hitting the alien in the throat. The creature gurgled, collapsing in a heap. The humans cheered, but only for a breath. Dozens more enemies were already surging forward. Rourke fired his rifle with deadly focus. Each shot was precise, not wasted. He moved like a man who had fought too many battles but refused to surrender. "Push them back," he roared. A group of enemies broke through the side barricade, charging straight toward the shelter. The widow gasped, pulling her children tighter. Rourke saw it instantly. "Delta Team, protect the shelter." He commanded. For soldiers sprinted forward, throwing grenades that exploded with white light. The blast blinded the enemy, giving the soldiers time to cut them down. The widow's children screamed, but they were safe for now. Still, the enemy kept coming. Their strength was brute force. Their strategy was simple: crush everything in their path. Humans were different. Humans fought with patience, with traps, with cunning. Rourke pointed toward the narrow street leading into the colony. "Collapse it now." Two soldiers detonated charges hidden under the dirt. The street buckled, swallowing half a squad of enemy soldiers into a pit of fire and rubble. The others roared in fury, but their charge slowed. The widow watched in awe. Her people had never fought like this. Her people only endured, only hid, only bent their heads. But humans stood tall, even when the enemy was stronger. She whispered to her children, "Do you see? Humans never kneel. This is why we need them." Rourke cut down another soldier, then turned sharply as a towering enemy commander stepped forward. This one was different, taller, faster, its armor glowing with crimson lines. It carried a massive blade shaped like a scythe. The enemy commander pointed directly at Rourke. Its voice was deep, metallic, and filled with hate. "You hide our traitor," it snarled. "You defend the weak. Humans are fragile insects. I will crush you before them all." The widow gasped, recognizing the monster. "He is the one," she whispered. "Door. The one who killed my husband." Rourke's eyes narrowed. The battlefield grew quiet for a moment, as if even the fire held its breath. The enemy commander raised its blade high. Rourke stepped forward, rifle lowering. His voice carried across the yard. "Then face me." The soldiers froze. The widow covered her mouth. The enemy commander let out a cruel laugh, stepping closer. The colony's survival, the widow's plea. The children's lives, all balanced on the edge of a single duel. The battlefield fell silent. Smoke drifted in the air, glowing red under the fire of enemy ships. Human rifles stopped firing. Enemy soldiers froze in place. Everyone's eyes turned toward the two figures now standing at the center of the colony. Yard. Captain Rourke, the enemy commander. One man, scarred but steady. One monster, armored in black and burning red. The widow gripped her children tightly, her silver eyes wide with fear. She whispered in a trembling voice, "That beast killed your father, and now he faces the human." The commander's voice rumbled like thunder. "You dare challenge me, fragile one. Have crushed hundreds of your kind. You will kneel, and I will carve your head from your body." Rourke's voice was calm, but it cut through the smoke like steel. "Humans don't kneel. Do you want me? Try and take me." The commander roared, raising his scythe blade high. With a single leap, he came down, the weapon hissing through the air. Rourke rolled to the side, the blade smashing into the ground where he had stood. The earth cracked, dirt flying upward. The crowd gasped. Rourke came up on one knee, firing his rifle. 3 sharp bursts hit the commander's chest, Sparks flying, but the armor absorbed the shots. The alien laughed, swinging the scythe in a wide arc. Rourke barely ducked, the blade missing his head by inches. He dropped the rifle. It was useless. Now, instead, he drew his combat knife. A human weapon, small and sharp. The soldiers watching held their breath. A knife against a monster's blade. Madness. But Rourke had no intention of fighting with strength. He would fight with something. Else, the commander struck again and again, each swing powerful enough to split steel. Rourke dodged, rolled, ducked under the arcs of death. Every movement was fast, controlled. He never met power with power. He let the monster waste his fury. The widow whispered to her children, "Watch him. He does not fight like us. He fights like a storm." The commander grew angry, frustrated that his blade never found its mark. He swung harder, faster, each attack sloppier than the last. His red armor glowed hotter, his roars louder. And that was when Rourke struck. He darted forward, sliding under the scythe's swing. His knife flashed, stabbing deep into the joint of the alien's armor. Black blood sprayed across the dirt. The commander howled in rage, swinging his massive hand. The blow caught Rourke, sending him crashing against a steel wall. The crowd cried out. The widow covered her mouth, trembling. Rourke staggered to his feet, blood running down his face. He gripped his knife tighter. His body shook, but his eyes burned with fire. The commander laughed cruelly. "You bleed, human. You break. You are nothing." Rourke spat blood and stood tall. "Maybe. But we don't stop." The alien lunged, blade raised high for the final strike. At the last second, Rourke dropped to the ground, rolling under the monster's legs. He drove the knife upward, deep into the unarmored joint behind the knee. The commander roared in pain, collapsing to one side. His blade slammed into the dirt, stuck fast. Rourke ripped his knife free and climbed onto the alien's back. With a fierce cry, he stabbed again and again into the gaps of the armor. Each strike fueled by the memory of fallen comrades, by the widow's desperate plea, by humanity's unbreakable will. Finally, the commander fell forward, crashing into the dirt. His scythe went dark. His red armor flickered, then stilled. The battlefield was silent. Rourke stood over the fallen monster. Chest heaving, knife dripping black blood. His uniform was torn, his face bruised, but his eyes were steady. He had won. The humans erupted in cheers, their voices shaking the night. "Rourke, Rourke, humanity stands." The widow fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. Her children clung to her, whispering, "The human saved us." But Rourke did not cheer. He looked toward the enemy ships above, because he knew. This duel was only the beginning. The body of the fallen alien commander lay still on the dirt, black blood pooling around the cracks in his armor. For a moment, the battlefield was silent. Humans cheered, raising their rifles to the night sky. The widow held her children, whispering, "He won. The human won." But the victory lasted only seconds. Above, the enemy fleet shifted. Red lights glowed brighter along the undersides of their warships. Engines roared like thunder. Low vibration rolled through the ground as power built inside their cannons. Captain Rourke looked up, his jaw tight. He had seen this tactic before. When commanders fell, the enemy did not retreat. They did not honor duels. They answered with fire. The first beam struck the hills beyond the colony. The explosion tore rock into the sky, sending a wave of dust across the settlement. People screamed and ducked. The shields flickered under the force. A voice boomed once again from the sky. "You killed our leader. For that, every human here will burn." The crowd's cheers turned to cries of terror. Mothers pulled their children toward the shelters. Soldiers looked to Rourke, waiting for orders, fear in their eyes. The widow rushed to him, her children clinging to her torn cloak. Her voice was desperate, shaking. "Captain, please, you must take my children and run. If you stay, they will die. If you fight, the colony will fall. Escape while there is still a path." Her silver eyes burned with sorrow. "You saved my daughter once. Do not let her die now. I beg you save them, even if I cannot be saved." Rourke stared at her. He saw the tears, the trembling children. But behind them, he saw something else, the faces of every settler. Every soldier, every child in this colony who could not run. "Humans don't run," he said quietly. "Not when others depend on us." The widow shook her head, pressing her forehead against his chest. "Then you will die for us, and your people will die too. Please, please think of them." Rourke's soldiers gathered close, their rifles ready. One of them, Sergeant Hale, spoke. "Sir, the fleet's preparing a full bombardment. We can't hold against that. If we fight, we die." Another soldier clenched his jaw. "But if we flee, where do we go? They'll hunt us across the stars." Choice was clear, yet impossible. Stay and defend, and the colony might burn. Run, and they would be chased forever. Rourke's eyes scanned the sky. He noticed something: the enemy fleet's formation. Their ships clustered together, relying on their size and strength. Their weakness was the same: pride. They never expected small prey to bite back. An idea formed, a dangerous one. He turned to his soldiers. "We cannot outgun them, but we can outthink them. We load every rail shell, every explosive we have. Aim at the flagship. If we break their heart, the rest may falter." The soldiers exchanged looks of disbelief. The flagship was massive, glowing with shields thicker than any human weapon could pierce. To attack, it was madness, but madness was all they had left. The widow grabbed Rourke's arm. Her voice was a whisper, broken with fear. "If you do this, you may save them, or you may lose everything." Rourke met her gaze, steady and unshaken. "Sometimes that is the price. Humanity stands, or it falls. There is no middle ground." Above, the enemy ships turned, charging their weapons for a final strike. The sky glowed crimson, as if the stars themselves were bleeding. The widow pulled her children close, whispering, "Pray, little ones. Pray the humans are as strong as I believe." Rourke raised his hand, signaling the gunners. "Ready all weapons." The ground shook as human cannons turned upward, every barrel aimed at the massive flagship in the sky. The settlers held their breath. The widow held her children. Soldiers gritted their teeth, knowing this might be their last stand. Rourke's voice thundered across the colony. "Fire on my command. Humanity bows to no one." The red glow above reached its peak. The moment of choice had come. The sky glowed red with death. Enemy warships hung above the colony like vultures, their cannons ready to fire. The ground trembled beneath their power. At the gates, Captain Rourke stood tall. His soldiers aimed every cannon, every rifle, every desperate weapon at the massive flagship looming above. "Steady," Rourke said, his voice low but firm. The widow held her children, her heart racing. Around her, settlers whispered prayers. Some cried, some simply waited. No one moved. The enemy voice thundered from the fleet. "Your courage is wasted. Your colony will burn. Your children will perish. Humans are nothing but insects under our heel." Rourke's jaw tightened. His soldiers waited for his signal. Then he raised his hand. "Fire!" The colony roared. Cannons shook the earth as blue bolts of light and steel shells tore into the sky. Missiles streaked upward, leaving trails of smoke. The night lit up as humanity's fury rose to meet the stars. The enemy flagship shields flared, absorbing. The first wave, it did not fall, but cracks of light spread across its glowing surface. Again, Rourke shouted. The gunners reloaded, sweat pouring down their faces. They fired once more, and then again. Each strike hammered the giant beast. In the sky, each shot screamed, "We will not bow." The flagship returned fire. Red beams rained down, smashing into the colony. Buildings exploded, shields shattered. Dust filled the air. People screamed. Yet through the fire and rubble, the humans kept fighting. The widow watched in awe. She whispered to her children, "Do you see? Even as they burn, they stand." One final cannon remained, heavy railgun, old and unstable, hidden in the colony's core. Rourke had saved it for last. "Load it," he ordered. The crew hesitated. The weapon was cracked, its systems unstable. If it fired, it might explode and kill everyone nearby. Rourke's eyes burned with fire. Do it. Humanity survives by risking everything. The shell was loaded. The gun groaned as power surged into its coils. Sparks danced across the metal dot above. The flagship charged its main cannon, aiming at the colony for the killing blow. Time slowed. Rourke gritted his teeth, gripping the trigger. "For humanity," he whispered. The railgun fired. The sound split the night like thunder. The shell tore upward, faster than sight, a spear of steel wrapped in lightning. It smashed into the flagship's weakened shield. The barrier shattered. The shell punched deep into its heart. For one breath, the sky went silent. Then the flagship exploded. The blast lit the heavens like a second sun. Enemy ships broke formation, their confidence shattered. Smaller warships fled, scattering into the void. The fleet, once so mighty, crumbled in terror. The humans erupted in cheers. Soldiers threw their fists into the air. Settlers cried with joy. Children shouted the captain's name. The widow fell to her knees, clutching her children, tears streaming down her silver face. She looked at Rourke, her voice shaking with awe. "You are more than warriors. You are hope itself." Rourke lowered his weapon, his face streaked with dirt and blood. He looked at the people around him, his people, and now hers. "Remember this," he said. "Humans don't win because we are strong. We win because we stand. Always." The colony burned in places, but it was alive. The people were alive. And now, so was the widow's family. Her children stepped forward, bowing their heads to the captain. The widow rose, her eyes filled with gratitude. "My children are well behaved," she said softly. "And I will be a good wife to you. Human, if you will have us." Rourke looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Then welcome. You are family now." The widow's tears turned to a smile. For the first time since the war began, she felt safe above them. The stars were quiet once more, and across the colony a single truth burned brighter than the fires.